Please, let us have a moment of silence for what we knew, the entity that we knew as the Duggar family. True reality has sunk in. No longer does the Duggar family have control of their show or their lives as they would have it. God has turned on them. I have some serious things to say. I'm not going to take a lot of time to say them. So, Joshy boy. Everybody's in an uproar about Joshy boy. But no one's trying to understand, where did he learn this behavior? Certainly not from his church. Or maybe he did. Certainly not from elder members in his family. Or maybe he did. Where did Josh Duggar, at age 14, learn to sexually target young females? He's 14 years old. There is a certain level of curiosity in a 14-year-old boy. But that does not mean you commit incest. That does not mean that you touch your sisters while they are sleeping. The most innocent state that they can be in. Why am I wanting to talk about this? Well, one of my parents was in the wedding party of Mary Duggar and her husband, Jim Bob Duggar's parents. And this leads up to that generation. Yes, I'm going to talk. I have often said that we still have the bridesmaid's dress. It was red velvet. They talked about the Duggar wedding for 3 generations. Actually 2. More 2. 2.5. How they put paper on the aisles. It was a very fancy wedding. And the red velvet dresses was just the icing on the cake in that Methodist church. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. But my father was involved. He was dating Mary's sister. You know the cousin Amy, that line of the Duggar family? Yeah, that one. Oh my goodness. I still hesitate to talk. Hope you can hear me well. Let me make sure everything's plugged in. Because honestly, I was going to go to bed a little bit earlier. But I decided, this is really relevant. And I've been very standoffish to talk about the truth. I knew Jim Bob when I was about 16 or 17. Let me assure you, that boy Josh Duggar learned from his elders. Now, Mary Duggar did not like to have sex. She did not like sex at all after she was married. She was a virgin. And confided in my mother and my father. And they took her to counselors and they had marriage therapy. And, they didn't know if this was going to make it. Mary's family had been in real estate for, maybe 2 generations at that point. She came from a well-established family in Arkansas. I won't say what town. Maybe this is just too much info. But really, they need to start looking at the father and the grandfather in this case. Abuse has a habit of trickling down generation by generation. And I do believe that this family needs to be investigated. Based on the information that I know from people telling me eyewitness testimony and my personal experience. The things my father said about this family. And my father was not a moral man, let me put it that way. And for him to say the things that he has about the Duggar family, my father's deceased. Oh my goodness. They were mostly fixated on Mary's sister, and I'll leave her name alone. But Mary Duggar has appeared on a national TV show, so I feel it's, she's kind of fair game at this point, especially with the stories coming out, because I didn't think anybody would believe anything I had to say. I mean, they're so untouchable. Untouchable. Some families are like that, And that's what they count on. 90% of all incest cases happen in religious homes. That's a fact, and that's from a Christian study, by the way. There's a book called A Door of Hope by Jan Frank, where it talks about abuse in religious families. There are a number of missionary schools that have experienced different forms of abuse within the school that were for children of missionaries. There was a time when it was not recommended that the children join the parents when doing missionary work. And they would often go to boarding schools in Africa or France, England. Switzerland was a hot spot for a number of different boarding schools. And this is a very hush-hush thing in the religious community. Who's standing up for those girls? I think they know about 5. There has to be 5 more. He had to hone his craft. And he was just lucky not to get caught till that point when his father walked in. Well, I'm going to think about this a little bit more. About what more I want to say. I know I'm not the only one. I know those girls are not the only one. And I know there are many victims of Grandpa Duggar as well. If you want to share this with people you think that have been affected, go ahead. I would like to talk to people that I would call comparables. They really need to expose this family and save those children. It's not because they're being homeschooled or it's over religious family. It is what was it that Freud said? It wasn't the sexuality that was the problem. It was the repression of sexuality that caused neurosis. I'm especially worried for Jana. I've heard many stories, not from Jana herself, but about Jana. I want to make that clear. It did not come from Jana. The people within the circle. And my mother still talks to Mary Duggar. So consider that. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go. And I was going to do a whole bunch of sound effects and background music like this one. But this is the painful truth. And painful truth really does not need background music. It is what it is. The painful truth. I think I'll make this a kind of reality show. Reality emotions that everybody has, but they never talk about. Thoughts that everybody has, but they never process. It makes me wonder the way life happens and all the deep, dark recesses of our memory, our human experience growing up vulnerable, hoping that what we're experiencing is normal, then finding out it's not. I think everyone has some sort of dysfunction in their early years. Because we live in an imperfect world. But I do believe that God is a perfect God. I'm not saying He can fix everything. I think that's a lie. But He can give you peace to go through anything. whatever you call the entity, spirit, mother goddess, maybe you call it a life force. That presence that is larger than yourself. That presence that lets you know that you are loved and you are not alone. It's one painful truth to really truly absorb that, to really get that you are not alone and you are loved. Now that's a painful truth, because it means you have to be open to love back. To truly love means to be vulnerable. That is a painful truth, but I think it's one of the best truths of all. Well, I welcome you to the discussion of the painful truth. What is your painful truth? May we process that and talk about it and see where we can go from there. My next show will be on the Duggar secrets. I have to think more on how I'm going to approach this. But they really need to look at the older generations. Josh is not the only one. And that, my friends, is the painful truth, especially for the children.